Ever since Todd Howard released this open-world giant back in 2011, Bethesda has re-released The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on virtually every electronic device capable of displaying pixels, short of a smart refrigerator, and honestly, nobody is actually complaining. What keeps us endlessly returning to this frozen northern province isn't just nostalgia, it's the unparalleled freedom to ignore the grand, world-ending prophecy in favor of absurd personal pursuits. You are technically the mythical Dragonborn, destined to slay an ancient dragon and save humanity, but within 10 minutes of escaping execution, you're far more likely to get sidetracked, stealing every cheese wheel in Whiterun, or trying to climb a sheer mountain on a physics-defying horse. The combat might feel a little floaty by modern standards, but the sheer joy of shouting bandits off massive cliffs or dual-wielding fireballs while a giant space programs you into the upper atmosphere never truly loses its charm. Bethesda created a living, breathing fantasy world where every tavern feels cozy, every dark cavern promises ancient loot, and every single NPC has a ridiculously specific opinion about sweet rolls. Decades later, walking out of that dark opening cave and seeing the Aurora Borealis stretch across the night sky, while Jeremy Soul's iconic score swells, still hits with the exact same sense of wonder. You start a fresh playthrough, promising yourself you'll finally build a sneaky illusion mage, and before you know it, you've somehow morphed back into a stealth archer clearing out bandit forts from 300 yards away. It remains the ultimate digital comfort food, proving that true open world freedom never goes out of style. When Nintendo announced a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, most people expected a cozy victory lap with a few new dungeons and extra story cutscenes. Instead, the developers handed millions of players an entire degree in mechanical engineering, turned Hyrule into a giant physics sandbox, and basically said, "Go wild, try not to break the reality matrix." The brilliance of Tears of the Kingdom isn't just that it expanded the map vertically into the clouds and down into the creepy pitch-black depths. It's the fact that abilities like Ultra Hand and Fuse fundamentally break how video game logic normally operates. Traditional games establish strict rules: see a river, find a bridge, see a mountain, find a trail. Nintendo looked at those conventions, laughed, and gave Link the ability to slap 4 rocket engines onto a wooden slab, stick a steering wheel on top, and launch himself into the atmosphere like a medieval astronaut who skipped safety inspections. Want a deadlier weapon? Fuse a giant boulder to a rusty broadsword, stick a flamethrower onto your shield, or attach a high-yield bomb flower to an arrow, and watch an entire moblin encampment immediately rethink their career choices. The entire experience thrives on a profound respect for player curiosity. Whenever you pause, examine some ridiculous contraption you built out of scrap wood and Zonai fans, and ask yourself whether the physics engine will actually allow such monstrosity to work, the game smirks and lets you pull the trigger. It is a stunning achievement in systemic game design that ruined almost every other open-world title on the market, simply by proving just how rigid and scripted those other games actually are. You end up spending hours ignoring the main quest entirely purely because constructing an over-engineered armored tank feels like the highest possible calling.
Phantom thieves will yield to no one, no matter who they are!
It all started.
Few video games in modern memory exude as much raw, effortless style as Persona 5 Royal, an RPG so absurdly dripping with visual flair that even scrolling through standard pause menus feels like attending a high-fashion runway show. Atlus took a massive 100-hour Japanese role-playing framework, drenched it in acid jazz, crimson graffiti aesthetics, and hyperkinetic comic book cut-ins, crafting a distinct identity that instantly puts other genre entries to shame. Your routine is split into 2 contrasting halves that constantly fuel each other. By day, you're an ordinary transfer student balancing class lectures, studying for midterms, and hanging out with friends around Tokyo to build personal bonds. By night, you're the leader of the Phantom Thieves, diving into surreal mental palaces to pull off impossible heart-stealing heists against corrupt authority figures. The turn-based combat system is slick and explosive, letting you exploit enemy weaknesses, trigger stylish baton passes, and unleash devastating all-out attacks with a rhythm so dynamic it never loses its punch after 80 hours. What makes the Royal Edition stand above the base game is the addition of an entirely new third semester fresh party members and overhauled combat mechanics that elevate an already legendary experience into absolute perfection. It asks for a massive investment of your free time, but when a game manages to make organizing a high school study group feel just as captivating as battling demonic apparitions in a distorted reality, you gladly surrender your entire sleep schedule. It is a triumphant celebration of style meeting substance, proving that traditional turn-based combat isn't dead. It just needed an outrageous dose of swagger and incredible musical composition to remind everyone how glorious it can truly be. You will come for the slick combat visuals, but you will stay for the unforgettable cast of characters. It simply never misses a beat. Capcom essentially looked at the traditional slow-paced ritual of monster tracking and asked what would happen if they injected pure arcade adrenaline directly into its circulatory system. By introducing the wire bug mechanic, Monster Hunter Rise threw vertical mobility into overdrive, turning heavy, deliberate combat into an airborne acrobatics show where giant swords slash through the sky like jet engines. You're no longer just a patient hunter, carefully timing 3-second swing animations. You're a high-flying ninja flinging yourself across mountain peaks, riding giant beasts like stolen jet skis, and zipping out of danger with the grace of a superhero who accidentally drifted into ancient feudal Japan. Add in the Palamute, a massive battle-ready canine companion you can ride at full sprint while sharpening your weapon, and Capcom eliminated almost all the downtime that used to frustrate newcomers to the franchise. What makes Rise so endlessly engaging is how it maintains the satisfying depth of crafting armor sets out of dragon skulls while dramatically speeding up the moment-to-moment action. Battles feel less like agonizing endurance tests and more like relentless high-stakes boss rushes where misreading a telegraph means getting launched across the arena like a stray baseball. The game respects your time so thoroughly that jumping into a quick hunt during a break feels natural, yet the underlying monster mechanics remain ridiculously deep. Between silkbind attacks, riding target monsters directly into stone walls, and customizing companion gear, the combat sandbox feels practically bottomless. It strips away the tedious prep work of older entries without diluting the visceral thrill of felling a mountain-sized beast, making it one of the absolute sharpest, most accessible entries in hunting action history. You come for the giant weapons, but you stay because zipping around on silk threads while riding a giant dog is plain addictive.
How very spirited. You truly think
Supergiant Games managed the near-impossible task of taking one of the most celebrated action roguelikes in history and delivering a sequel that somehow makes the original look like a warm-up routine. Trading Zagreus' brute force escape attempts for his witchy sister Malinoe, the combat shifts toward tactical sorcery, intricate projectiles, and magical channel spells that transform arena clearing into a dazzling dance of destruction. Instead of just dodging frantically around fiery underworld chambers, you're managing a pool of Omega energy to freeze armies in their tracks, summon localized moonlit explosions, and hex cosmic monstrosities. The brilliance of Supergiant's storytelling design shines through every single death. Failing a run never feels like losing progress, because walking back into the Crossroads hub rewards you with fresh mega-tier voice acting, gossip among ancient deities, and incremental upgrades that subtly shift your strategy for the next attempt. Melinoe's journey to take down Kronos, the Titan of Time, carries a darker, richer atmospheric weight. Backed by Darren Korb's haunting, pulse-pounding soundtrack that fires up the exact moment combat breaks out. Boon synergies feel wildly inventive this time around, letting you stack elemental curses and deity favors to craft builds so broken they feel almost illegal. What elevates Hades 2 above standard roguelikes is its sheer generosity of content. Just when you think you've mastered the core gameplay, the game expands horizontally with entirely new biomes, weapons, and progression trees to untangle. It never relies on repetitive grinding to inflate its runtime. Every single escape attempt unfolds like a distinct chapter in an unfolding Greek tragedy where you happen to wield dark witchcraft. It takes phenomenal confidence to fix what wasn't broken. But Supergiant pulled it off effortlessly, delivering an absolute masterclass in sequel design that hooks you immediately and refuses to let go. You will swear off one last run at 3 in the morning every single night. Stepping into the needle-sharp boots of Hornet transforms the moody world of Fairloom into an acrobatic nightmare in the best way imaginable. Where the original knight felt grounded, sturdy, and defensive, Hornet moves like an enraged fencing instructor running on pure caffeine, leaping across vertical biomes, vaulting off enemy heads, and parrying attacks with lethal elegance. Team Cherry took the melancholic atmospheric brilliance of their original Metroidvania masterpiece and dialed the momentum up to 11. Every single encounter feels faster and far more demanding, requiring you to zip through intricate silk lines, throw craftable traps on the fly, and heal yourself mid-air using gathered silk instead of standing still like a sitting duck. The Kingdom of Fairloom itself is a sprawling, hand-drawn labyrinth dripping with lore, gorgeous orchestral music, and terrifying insectoid horrors that love nothing more than sending you back to the nearest bench. What makes Silksong so remarkably satisfying is how every mechanic actively encourages aggressive, fluid mastery. You aren't just surviving close quarters combat, you're conducting a hyper-precise lethal dance where a single misplaced dash means losing half your health pool. Boss fights are absolute gauntlets of twitch reflexes and spatial awareness, forcing you to learn telegraphs with surgical precision before turning the tables with Hornet's Agile Kit. Between the vast web of hidden pathways, complex crest customization, and optional platforming challenges that border on sadistic, Team Cherry proved that taking their sweet time in development was worth every agonizing second of waiting. The difficulty curve is uncompromising, sure, but conquering a grueling boss fight after 50 attempts yields a high that very few modern action games can ever hope to match. It is a triumphant, gorgeous, and fiercely rewarding sequel that proves precision, Metroidvania still reigns supreme. You will lose your mind to the difficulty, but your soul will thank you. Masahiro Sakurai looked at the colossal roster of modern gaming history, decided that moderation was for cowards, and assembled what is arguably the most absurd digital museum of combat ever placed onto a single cartridge. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate doesn't just deliver on its ambitious subtitle, it practically suffocates you with content in the best way humanly possible, packing 89 playable fighters, over 100 stages, and a soundtrack long enough to outlast a cross-country road trip. The game feels less like a traditional fighting title and more like a fever dream where Snake can drop a mortar on Pikachu while Steve from Minecraft builds a dirt house in the background. What keeps this chaos together is a combat framework that is impossibly accessible for a room full of casual friends throwing items at each other, yet absurdly deep for competitive players analyzing frame data down to the millisecond. The genius of Ultimate lies in its sheer reverence for video game heritage. Every character moves, punches, and reacts with animations pulled directly from their original titles, turning every match into a chaotic love letter to interactive media. You can spend 5 minutes learning how to throw a basic punch with Mario, or spend 5 months mastering frame-perfect input combos with Kazuya, and the game supports both playstyles with total sincerity. Sure, the online infrastructure occasionally feels like it's running on 2 tin cans connected by string, but local couch multiplayer remains an unbeatable friendship testing gold standard. It stands as a triumphant achievement that we will probably never see replicated at this scale ever again, simply because negotiating those character rights must have required an army of corporate lawyers and endless buckets of coffee. You fire it up for a quick, casual match, and before you know it, it's 3 in the morning, and you're passionately debating the competitive viability of a potted plant.
Ticket to a relaxing, stress-free life, one in which you'll interact with a whole community of
What started as a
residents.
tranquil getaway package on an unpopulated island quickly morphed into a high-stakes, real-time life simulator where a ruthless Tanuki real estate mogul holds your financial future hostage. Animal Crossing: New Horizons arrived precisely when the world needed an escape, offering a deceptively simple gameplay of chopping wood, catching rare fish, and terraforming rivers until your deserted island transforms into a lavish tropical paradise. The brilliant trap here is how masterfully the game leverages real-world time to pace your progress. Shop upgrades take actual calendar days, seasonal bugs only appear during specific months, and missing a weekend turnip market can send your entire virtual stock portfolio crashing down. Nintendo handed players unprecedented creative authority this time around, introducing cliff construction, custom pathway tools, and outdoor furniture placement that turned millions of casual gamers into obsessive landscape architects. You start off sleeping in a tiny canvas tent, catching black bass and shaking trees for stray coins, and before you know it, you're spending 6 hours flattening a mountain range just to construct an aesthetically pleasing entrance for a museum run by an owl who is terrified of bugs. Underneath the adorable pastel visuals and relaxing acoustic guitar sits a surprisingly compelling gameplay mechanic driven by pure intrinsic motivation. There are no game over screens, no ticking timers during quests, and no combat pressure. Just Tom Nook gently reminding you that your Home Loan expansion is due whenever you get around to it. It manages to make tedious chores like pulling weeds and watering flowers feel intensely therapeutic, proving that sometimes the ultimate gaming power fantasy is just owning a fully customized house on a quiet beach. You come in expecting a chill weekend distraction, and 6 months later you're aggressively trading turnips on online forums like a seasoned Wall Street trader. At first glance, Celeste presents itself as a ruthlessly difficult pixel art platformer, explicitly designed to test the structural durability of your favorite controller. But underneath all those frame-perfect jumps sits one of the most empathetic stories in modern gaming. You play as Madeline, a young woman climbing the mysterious Mount Celeste to prove something to herself while physically wrestling with a manifestation of her own severe anxiety and self-doubt. Every screen acts as a tightly wound micro-puzzle of momentum and spatial timing, teaching complex, dashing mechanics without relying on tedious tutorials or cheap hand-holding. You're going to die thousands of times plunging directly into glowing spikes or missing a ledge by a millimeter, yet the game instantly respawns you without a second of downtime. That instant restart recontextualizes failure, turning death from a frustrating penalty into a quick learning step towards success. The true genius lies in how the gameplay seamlessly mirrors Madeline's emotional struggle as the mountain trails grow steeper and demand absolute precision. You find yourself adopting her exact mindset of taking a deep breath, accepting mistakes, and pushing forward through the panic. Paired with Lana Raine's hauntingly beautiful, synth-heavy soundtrack that tracks every emotional peak and valley, Celeste turns a punishing arcade climber into a deeply therapeutic journey that lingers long after you finish the summit. It never mocks your struggles or makes you feel inadequate. Instead, it gently hands you the tools to overcome the mountain at your own pace. By the time you finally reach the top, you realize the game wasn't just testing your reflexes, it was secretly teaching you how to treat yourself with a little more kindness when life gets absurdly overwhelming. It remains an undeniable masterpiece of narrative-driven design that elevates standard platforming into an emotional art form. Few games balance intense challenge and genuine heart with this level of grace. Nobody looking at a screenshot of Vampire Survivors would ever guess that a retrographic game where you don't even press an attack button could hijack your brain chemistry for 30 straight hours. Developer Luca Galante essentially stripped away complex controls, leaving you with nothing more than a directional stick and a simple mission: survive against a literally suffocating wall of pixelated monsters. Your character attacks automatically, firing magic wands, throwing garlic, and hurling whips at a steadily growing horde of night creatures. The absolute genius of the design sits in its dopamine-fueled progression mechanic that feels part roguelike, part reverse bullet hell, and part high-stakes slot machine. You start off frail, desperately weaving around handfuls of slow bats, but as you pick up colorful experience gems, you upgrade weapons and combine passives into absurdly overpowered screen-wiping tools of mass destruction. Suddenly, you're no longer fleeing in terror, you're a walking apocalyptic event melting 10,000 skeletal warriors per minute while gold coins flood your screen with glorious casino-style sound effects. It's pure distilled video game satisfaction that respects your time, while simultaneously tricking you into saying just one more 5-minute run until 4 in the morning. With an endless stream of hilarious DLC crossovers featuring everything from Contra to Castlevania, The developer turned what looked like a simple project into a legitimate cultural phenomenon that spawned a whole subgenre. You never feel cheated by a loss because every failed run gives you just enough gold to purchase permanent stat upgrades, making your next attempt feel slightly easier and infinitely more chaotic. It proves that fancy graphics and blockbuster budgets mean absolutely nothing compared to a brilliant gameplay that makes popping virtual enemies feel like popping bubble wrap. You fire it up for a quick break, and before you realize what happened, your entire weekend vanished.
Okay everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you liked that video, please leave a like and subscribe, and ring the bell if you want to get notified when we release new content. We hope to see you in the next video.